Have you ever wanted to feel the paranoia, power, and mistrust of keeping your cult of a town under the palm of your hands, with 5 families playing your game in their own, all while an ancient evil stirs? Well, if that's so, let's talk about the Shrouded Isle. The Shrouded Isle is a 2017 Gothic cult simulator where you take on the leader of a town, home to its citizens, along with the town's 5 major houses. Originally being released on Windows, I will be talking about the freshly released Switch port of the game, released on the day that this video is put up. Also included in this port of the game is the expansion pack, Sunken Sins. We are introduced with a cutscene, where we learn that the year is 495 of our Lord and Savior Chernobog. In 5 years' time, he will rise and grant glory to those who are faithful to his word and bring end times to the rest of the world. Or, that's at least what the town's founders said. But you wouldn't want to go against the word of Chernobog, would you? Only sinners would do something like that, and you really wouldn't want to be the season's sacrifice. After learning of the impending doom that the world faces, and you could possibly face if your town is not purged of sin and non-belief, you are dropped straight into the game. Yep. There are no tutorials in the Shrouded Isle. The game is not going to hold your hand at all. The game is going to throw you right into it all like a heretic into the purifying chambers, giving you lots of different things to do, but not much info on any of them at all in the beginning. Right off the bat, you are met with a cathedral, estates belonging to the town's important families, and lots of stats and flavor text. I will say this right now, this game is not for you if you're not willing to look around and learn what the game has to offer, or at the very least, look up a guide online. However, I recommend against that, since that can introduce some spoilers. It starts off a bit overwhelming, but does become relatively manageable once you figure out the basics of what each stat does. You're going to fail your cult and god a lot in the Shrouded Isle, but don't worry, you will get the hang of it if you keep with it. Basically, the cathedral is your home base, where you receive random choice card-like events that will influence certain parties and stats. The 5 homes belonging to the different families are where you get your advisors for each season, top off with the head of the house who gives you relatively unimportant backgrounds on each of the characters who are randomly generated each time you start the game. While the town, sequence of major events, and failed states are all set in stone, the house members, their skills, and minor events are all randomly generated. I like this and the replay value it adds, although you're always going to see the same faces and events in each playthrough, just sprinkled in randomly. The game is a management sim, but you manage a few key individuals who do the management of the town for you. There is no base building. It was cool to see a combination of this more personal and impersonal feel to the game, appearing as this higher-than-life figure to your subjects, but potentially as just another dethronable human to those closer to you. Every season you will go to each house and perform an inquiry or two on family members, learning their virtue and sin. After you sort through and decide who you will want to represent that family for the season, you'll appoint them as an advisor. Once you have all 5 advisors chosen, you begin the season, which consists of 3 months. Each month, you choose 1 to 3 advisors who will affect things like family reputation and values in the town, among other things. This is where the main gameplay happens, and it's a lot of text menus with nice looking visuals and lots of RNG. Well, this is fun for your first playthrough if you're into that sort of stuff. The major problems with the game start to kick in, and that is the repetitious feel, and of course the aforementioned RNG. See, while everything looks nice, menus transition smoothly, and I like the idea behind each punishment put onto the town to keep them in line, seeing the same animation screen with the same sound effects over and over again, with bars rising or lowering, wore me out pretty fast. If there was more sub-story and narrative to each of the text boxes that tell you what happened, it would have been more captivating than the single sentence of what happened that previous month. Now, this next part I like an idea, but in execution, it's a bit tedious, and that's the fact that you can never keep every family happy with all your decisions. Their devotion and loyalty to you will always be swaying one way or the other. I never really figured out who liked what, since even when I chose certain members of a family, that house still might have lowered their opinion of me. Same thing with some of the town's values. It was all very hit or miss with what I was doing actually correlating with what happened. After each season, you are forced to choose one of the 5 advisors to sacrifice to protect your town. And sometimes, during the sacrifice, you must get rid of a chosen sinner after you figure out who it is. Honestly, I really just wish there was more going on in terms of descriptions and events, followed by more visuals. I don't need a billion different images for each event, but some variety would be nice from the 1 or 2 we get. I also feel as though a difficulty setting of sorts based on how many years you want the game to go on for would be nice. Easy is 2 years, normal is 3, and hard is 5. Something like that. that. It could also play around with the cult setting by naming each difficulty after a rank in said cult. Before I switch from gameplay to visuals, I do want to mention the Sunken Sins portion of the game. It fits in naturally, and once again, the ideas are there, I just wish more was done with it. Basically, a rundown structure called the Tower is opened back up and can be used to lock up citizens infected with random contagions. It also introduces even more unnerving looking character portraits if you're lucky, but you can also kill the person being put through the process if you're unlucky. The game controls really fluidly on the Switch, and outside of a moment here and there where a menu would lock up for a second or the cursor would hop over to the next box, it was responsive and I had no problem with the controls. I'm also playing on a review copy, just again to note that, so any problems I may have might not be in the final product. The game also has no problems with load times either, as they were quick and barely noticeable. If you fail your current game, there is no way to reload it, and I don't mind this sort of perma-loss honestly, as everything is back fresh when you start a new game. There's just this overall sense of doom and gloom, and just a foreboding sense of the end. If I could sum up the feeling of the atmosphere I got while playing in 2 words, it would be morbidly enthralled. The art style is easily one of the best parts of the game, and my favorite thing overall past the idea and concept of the cult. Everything in the game had this wonderfully horrible, soggy photo book album feel to it, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I didn't trust any of these people, and here, it is most definitely okay to judge a person by how they look. I loved all the character designs, from the ghoulishly brute-looking men to the gothically lovely ladies, interspersed with characters of facial archetypes from this period. I have to commend the artist for doing just such a gosh darn good job selling the entire thing. From decrepit architecture to the atmospheric insides of the houses and buildings, right down to the fun, if not overly reused and short cutscenes, the visuals kept the more frustrating parts of the game enjoyable, at least on a surface level. I also really liked that you could choose different color schemes outside of the default green on the start menu options. I didn't really use any of the other colors, but it was a nice addition to have for those who wanted a slightly different visual flair from the positively ghastly and sickly greens. The soundtrack sounds as if you really are the lord of some manor, trying to keep the knives from your back and your people ignorant of the truths of the real world. The music sounds incredibly high budget, and while listening to the OST of the game, I can say that it builds dread in you quite well. The other sounds were okay, but hearing them over and over again in such quick order made me get tired of hearing the same whip or smash sounds every few minutes. There's no voices, and I'm okay with this, as voice acting, I feel, would have ruined the atmosphere of corruption and deception the game builds. The Shrouded Isle is a game that I know definitely has an audience who will enjoy the RNG based gameplay, but will disappoint those looking for more than just stat leveling and raising. The fantastic visuals and music will keep you around for a bit, but if the gameplay doesn't hook you, there isn't much here for you. The occult themes are nice, but have a lot of room to be expanded upon, and the lack of any real rich and in-depth world building disappointed me since I liked what little we got to know. The game is far from bad, but even with the smoothness, it's incredibly rough and far from perfect in terms of gameplay. I will say that even if you aren't too big a fan of the gameplay, there's still something to enjoy in some of the other offerings here, at least for a little bit of your time. The format here works really well with the Switch's portable mode, and I can totally see this game working on a mobile device with how simple the menus are. The game also isn't too long to get an ending for once you get the hang of the mechanics, taking you maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours or so. There are a lot of fail states, but there are 7 official endings in total. I got the Feast ending my first time beating the game, so let me know which one you got if you played the game before. All in all, the Shrouded Isle is a decent game with some nice work put into it, only bogged down by the complexly simple gameplay and the lack of drive in the later portions of the game, not helped by the overabundant use of RNG. Great visuals and outstanding music are able to make up for a bit of the later gameplay drag for a bit, but won't save the game for you if the gameplay part of things just doesn't appeal. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and a big thank you to Victoria Tran and Kit Fox Games for the review copy of the game. Their Twitter and the game's Steam page will be located in the description below. And as I said previously, the Switch port of Shrouded Isle will be released exactly the day this video is released, so if you're interested, go check it out. If you enjoyed the video, please consider sharing it with a friend or checking out my Patreon. A big thank you to the show's patrons, Gemstar Gold and Project Nova. For those who like to support the show but can't do it monthly, I have opened up a PayPal donation thing for those interested in one-time support. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on what I should review next, let me know down in the comments below. This is Thierry Williamson signing off until the next video. See you guys!